My wife slept with my brother and stole $250, $0 from our inheritance, then lied her way into controlling our house. Now she's filing for divorce over a failed settlement I never agreed to. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story like this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Honestly, I wish I could say I saw the signs coming, but I didn't. Everything seemed normal, well, as normal as it gets when you've been married for 10 years. My wife Lisa was always a bit high maintenance, but I loved her and she seemed happy enough. We had a pretty good life, or so I thought. Then one day everything changed. It started with small things, missed calls, strange texts, her suddenly being busy all the time. At first I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed at work, or maybe she was just tired. But then I noticed her phone kept disappearing, and she'd get defensive whenever I asked about it. She'd say I was paranoid, that I was overthinking. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I decided to surprise her and see if she was home. I slipped in quietly, and that's when I saw her. She was in the bedroom, tangled up with my brother Jake. I saw them through the crack in the door, her legs wrapped around him, both of them in bed. I froze. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My own wife sleeping with my brother. It was like a punch to the gut. I didn't make a scene. I just backed out quietly, my mind racing. I needed to process what I'd seen. How long had this been going on? Was this just sex, or was there something more? And what about the money? That's when things got even worse. I've been saving up for years, our inheritance, about $250, $0 set aside for a house for our future. I found out she'd stolen it. Not only was she cheating, but she'd taken a huge chunk of our future away from me. The next day I confronted her. I told her I knew everything. She looked at me wide-eyed and then started spinning her usual lies. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just sex, it doesn't mean anything. Jake and I are just friends. You're paranoid as usual." She denied everything, even when I had receipts, texts, bank statements, proof of the money transfer she'd made to some account I'd never seen before. She doubled down, calling me crazy, saying I was imagining things, that I was jealous. That moment hit me hard. I felt a mix of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak all at once. I never thought Lisa was capable of this kind of deception, especially not with my brother. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd experienced before. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty. Turns out, I was living with a liar, a thief, and someone who could sleep with her own blood relative and then lie her way out of it. I sat there, stunned, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen and heard. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just sat there numb. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I felt so stupid for trusting her. I thought I knew her. Turns out I didn't know her at all. And the worst part, she was already planning her next move, filing for divorce, trying to take everything I had worked for. That's when I realized I had to get revenge. Not just for the money, not just for the betrayal, but for the lie of a marriage I thought I had. I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to fight back, and I knew exactly how I was going to do it. But I'll tell you more about that in the next part. After I saw her with Jake that night, everything in my world shifted. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying the scene over and over in my head. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let it go on for so long without knowing. My trust was shattered and I felt like a fool. How could Lisa do this to me? How could she betray me with my own brother? It felt like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I started digging into her phone. I knew I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. I needed answers. I needed to see if there was more than just that one night. Turns out there was. I found a trail of texts, explicit messages and photos, things that confirmed they'd been sleeping together for months. I found messages where she called him her secret, and him promising to take care of her. They talked about meeting up in secret, hiding it from everyone. It was like a web of lies spun so tightly I didn't even see it coming. Meanwhile, she kept lying to me, acting innocent when I confronted her. She said I was imagining things, that I was jealous, that I was paranoid. She told me I was just insecure and that she loved me. That's when I realized she was good at lying, better than I'd ever given her credit for. She'd gaslight me, make me doubt my own instincts, but I had enough evidence now. I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this. The money was the next big shock. Turns out, she'd been siphoning off our inheritance for months. I found bank statements showing she'd transferred $250, $0 to some account in her name. I couldn't believe it. That's our future gone. All our plans for a new house, a better life, just evaporated because she was greedy and selfish. I was furious. I felt like I'd been robbed blind, betrayed in every way possible. I knew I had to confront her again, this time with everything laid out on the table. I called her, told her I knew about the affair and the money. She denied everything at first, saying I was making it all up, that I was just jealous, but I had the proof. I read her the bank statements, the texts, everything. Her face turned red, then white. She started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of trying to ruin her. She said she only did it because I was a terrible husband, that I ignored her needs, that I was never there for her emotionally. That was the moment I realized her lies knew no bounds. She spun it as if she was the victim, like I was the bad guy for catching her. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was nothing like the person I thought she was. She was manipulative, selfish, and a liar. I felt so many emotions: anger, sadness, disgust. But underneath it all, there was a burning need for justice. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to do something. I started planning my next move. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and I knew I couldn't stay married to her, not after what she did. I needed to protect what was left of my life, my money, my dignity. I decided I'd fight her in court, but I also wanted to make her pay in a way she'd never see coming. I wanted her to feel the pain I'd been feeling every day since I saw her with Jake. That's when I started working on my revenge plan carefully, methodically. I knew I had to be smart about it, stay one step ahead, and make sure she didn't see it coming. But I'll tell you more about how I executed that plan in the next part. Once I had all the evidence laid out and my mind started to clear a little from the initial shock, I realized I couldn't just confront her and hope she'd do the right thing. No, I needed a plan, something precise, something calculated. I wasn't just angry. I was determined to make her regret every lie, every betrayal, every dollar she stole from us. I wanted her to feel powerless, just like I felt when I saw her with Jake. The first step was to get my ducks in a row legally. I contacted a lawyer I knew from an old case, someone sharp, discreet, and experienced with divorce and financial disputes. I laid everything out: the affair, the stolen money, her attempts to control the house, her lies. I told him I wanted to fight for my fair share and to ensure she didn't walk away with everything, especially not the inheritance. I also made copies of every bank statement, every text, every piece of evidence I had. It was time to turn the tables. Meanwhile, I started secretly monitoring her. I knew she was planning to file for divorce, and I didn't want her to spin the narrative in her favor. I hired a private investigator, nothing fancy, just enough to keep tabs on her. Turns out, she was already talking to a divorce lawyer, trying to set up a settlement that would leave me with nothing. I caught her meeting with the lawyer, trying to push through a settlement I never agreed to. That was the last straw. I knew I had to act fast before she managed to manipulate the situation further. I also started gathering allies, people close to her, friends, her family, anyone who might have influence or insight. I wanted to understand her mindset, her motives, and how she planned to spin her lies. It was clear she was good at manipulation, but I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. I needed to be prepared for everything. Then, I devised my own countermove. I filed for a temporary restraining order to prevent her from selling or transferring any more assets. I wanted to freeze the house and bank accounts so she couldn't drain anything else. I also made sure the court was aware of her theft and infidelity. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She was a manipulative woman, and she had a way of twisting things in her favor. But I had the evidence, and I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. In the meantime, I kept my cool around her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing how much she affected me. I pretended to be indifferent, but inside I was boiling. Every time she lied or tried to gaslight me, it fueled my resolve. I knew this was going to get ugly, but I was ready. I had to be. I couldn't let her get away with ruining my life and stealing my future. One night I caught her trying to sneak out with some documents, papers that could have affected the court case. I confronted her and she denied everything, of course. But I had already made copies and I had her on camera trying to hide things. That was a turning point. She realized I was serious, that I was willing to fight dirty if I had to. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and disgust. Satisfaction that I was finally taking control, disgust at how far she'd gone. I also started planning my emotional exit. I knew I'd have to stay strong, keep my head clear, and not let her manipulate me into doing something reckless. I started focusing on myself, working out, reconnecting with friends, thinking about what I really wanted. I knew I'd eventually have to cut her out completely, but I wanted to do it on my own terms. Revenge, I realized, wasn't just about money or control. It was about reclaiming my dignity and showing her she couldn't get away with everything. That's how I spent the next few weeks, building my case, gathering evidence, staying one step ahead. I knew she was planning her next move, but I was ready for her. I could see the cracks in her facade and I was determined to expose her for who she really was. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for my life, my sanity, my respect. And I was going to win, even if it meant tearing her world apart first. Let me know if you'd like me to continue. By the time I had everything prepared, lawyers, evidence, a solid game plan, I knew I couldn't hold back anymore. My wife Lisa was still trying to play her manipulative games. She kept insisting that I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that I was trying to control her. She acted like she was the victim, as if I had done something wrong by catching her cheating and stealing from us. But I wasn't going to let her spin stories anymore. I had enough. It was time to take control and make sure she paid for what she'd done. One of the most satisfying moments was when I finally confronted her, face to face with everything laid out. I called her into the living room, showed her the bank statements, the texts, the pictures. I told her I knew about her affair with Jake, about the stolen inheritance, about her trying to manipulate the house. Her face turned white, then red, then she started yelling. She accused me of invading her privacy, of being paranoid, of trying to ruin her reputation. She said I was just jealous because she was more successful, that I was insecure and pathetic. I just looked at her and said, "Lisa, I have all the proof I need. You lied to my face for months. You slept with my brother, stole our money, and now you're trying to take everything I worked for. I'm done playing your games." Her eyes darted around, and for a moment I thought she might crack. But then she started crying fake tears, trying to make me feel guilty. She said she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd change. But I knew better. I knew this was who she was: selfish, manipulative, a liar. The next step was filing for divorce. I wanted her out of my life. I wanted full custody of the house, the money, and the respect I deserved. I also wanted to ensure she couldn't get away with any more tricks. I filed all the paperwork, but I also made sure to include the evidence of her infidelity and theft. I knew she'd try to spin it in her favor, so I had to be prepared for her next move. Meanwhile, I kept the pressure on. I didn't let her see how much she was affecting me. I stayed calm, collected, and focused. I also started documenting everything: her attempts to manipulate the court, her lies, her efforts to sway friends and family. I needed to have an airtight case, and I wasn't going to let her sabotage me. One thing that really struck me during this process was how much she relied on her charm and her lies to get her way. She'd call friends, spin stories, make herself seem innocent. But I saw through her. I had the evidence, and I knew she'd try to gaslight everyone else too. That's why I stayed vigilant. I didn't trust her for a second. My emotional state was a roller coaster. I was furious, betrayed, humiliated, but also resolved. I knew I had to get through this for myself, for my future. I kept telling myself I'd come out the other side stronger, smarter. I'd learned that trust is fragile, that some people are capable of the worst betrayals, and that sometimes revenge isn't about hurting them physically, but about exposing their lies and making sure they don't get away with it. In the end, I realized I wasn't just fighting for money or property. I was fighting for my dignity, for my sanity. I had to rebuild my life from the ruins she left behind. And honestly, that's what kept me going. Every day I reminded myself I was better off without her, that the truth would come out and justice would be served. I just had to stay patient and keep pushing forward. Let me know if you'd like me to continue. The court date finally arrived after months of preparation and legal battles. I was nervous, not just about the outcome, but about facing her again after everything she'd put me through. Lisa was there, looking confident, trying to charm her way through the proceedings. She had her lawyer whispering in her ear, and I could see her trying to manipulate the judge, the court staff, anyone who would listen. But I had my evidence and I was ready. When it was my turn to speak, I laid out everything. The affair, the stolen inheritance, her attempts to control the house, her lies, everything. I presented the bank statements, the texts, the photos. I explained how she had been deceitful from the start, how she'd lied to my face, and how she'd betrayed our vows and our family. I made it clear I wanted full custody of the house, the inheritance, and a fair division of assets. I also requested that she be held accountable for the theft, and I demanded she return the money she stole, or at least pay it back. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that I was just bitter, that her client was a victim of my paranoia, but I had the facts. I saw her squirm as I spoke, her face pale and then flushed. I could tell she was panicking, realizing her carefully spun lies were falling apart. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, scrutinizing the evidence, and finally, after what felt like an eternity, he made his ruling. The court awarded me full custody of the house and the inheritance. Lisa was ordered to pay back the stolen $250, $0, which she had no choice but to agree to. She tried one last time to spin her guilt into sympathy, claiming she was under stress, that she loved Jake, and that she was sorry, but it was all hollow. Her words sounded empty, rehearsed. The judge wasn't buying it. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Lisa was furious, throwing tantrums, trying to manipulate her way out of it, but it was too late. The court's decision was final. I finally felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had fought hard and I had won. But it wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of justice. In the days that followed, I started to piece my life back together. I changed the locks on the house, secured my finances, and began to cut ties with Lisa. She continued to try to reach out, but I ignored her. The damage was done. I knew I'd never trust her again, and honestly, I didn't want to. I learned the hard way that some people are capable of incredible betrayal, and that revenge isn't about hurting them physically, but about making them realize they're powerless when the truth is exposed. Looking back, I realize I've grown stronger from all this. It's been a brutal lesson, but one I'll never forget. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to get justice. You have to expose the lies, the manipulation, the greed. Because if you don't, they'll keep taking and lying until there's nothing left of you. So, my advice to anyone out there going through something similar: trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because in the end, nobody is coming to save you. You have to be your own hero. And trust me, the truth always has a way of coming out, no matter how good they are at lying. Let me know if you want me to finish with the final part. Now that everything's settled, I've had some time to reflect on the chaos that's been my life these past few months. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the guy who gets betrayed this badly, by my wife, my brother, and even by my own sense of security. It's been a brutal wake-up call. I used to trust blindly, thinking that love and loyalty were enough to keep everything stable. Turns out, some people will take everything they can get, and they'll lie and cheat right in front of your face without a second thought. Getting everything legally sorted was a huge relief, but it wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about reclaiming my dignity and proving that I wasn't going to let her destroy me. When I finally walked out of that courtroom, I felt like I'd been reborn. The betrayal still stings, but I also feel a strange sense of empowerment. I fought for myself, for what was rightfully mine, and I won. That's a victory I'll carry with me for a long, long time. Since then, I've been rebuilding my life. I've cut out all contact with Lisa. I've started therapy, not because I think I'm broken, but because I need to heal. I've gotten rid of the toxic people, the lies, the manipulations. I've focused on my career, my friends, and my own well-being. I've learned that trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it's almost impossible to restore, and sometimes it's better to move on and rebuild from scratch. Looking back, I see the red flags I ignored, the moments I dismissed my intuition. I realize now that I should have listened to myself earlier, trusted my gut instead of giving her the benefit of the doubt. But I also understand that sometimes you have to go through hell to come out stronger on the other side. That's what this experience has taught me: resilience, the importance of standing up for yourself, and the brutal honesty that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight dirty. For anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, I want to say, don't stay silent. Gather your evidence, get legal help, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. It's not about revenge for revenge's sake. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your future. Because at the end of the day, the truth has a way of coming out, and those who lie and cheat will eventually be exposed. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to break you. It can teach you to be smarter, stronger, and more cautious. And most importantly, it can remind you that you're better off without the people who don't truly value you. I may have lost trust, but I gained clarity. I see now who my real friends are, and I know what I deserve. So I'm moving on. The pain will fade, the scars will stay, but I'll keep walking forward. And I'll never forget what I've been through, because it's made me who I am today, a man who fought for his life, his money, and his dignity. And I won.